Welcome everyone to a Learn at Lunch about digital interventions. I am Kirsty. I am the clinical trial coordinator of the digital team study here at HMRI, and my background is in biomedical engineering. I am in no way an expert on digital interventions. However, throughout our kind of journey throughout the digital team study, I have learned loads about what's going on with digital interventions, the e-health kind of area, and all that kind of stuff. So I hopefully can share with you a bit of that, and then also a bit of my engineering background as well along the way. So my talk will be structured so that hopefully you can eat while I have a chat with you, and then afterwards we may well go through and create a prototype of an app on your very own computer. So have fun, feel free to eat, ask me questions throughout if you want to, if you have one. Yeah, let's have some fun. Where exactly do you start when you want to create or make a digital intervention? Now, I came into the digital team study and I was asked this exact thing. So we had a general outline and we knew that we wanted to create an app, a website, an SMS messaging kind of forum, and telehealth for people with asthma to try and get them more connected to asthma educators at Asthma Australia. And I kind of did, and everyone who might be in my position kind of may have looked like this, where I kind of didn't really have an idea of where to start. However, I kind of incorporated some of my knowledge from my engineering background to develop a way of beginning the conversations of how to design these platforms and really get down to the nitty-gritty details of what should be included. So hopefully, after this talk and kind of interactive hour, you, like me, will look a little bit more like this. So let's see how we go. So I want to introduce to you something called the engineering design process. This is a process where engineers kind of follow a series of steps to get to a solution to a problem. This is kind of a more structured way and gives you a kind of like a place to start. This process looks something a little bit like this, where first of all you define the problem. You then do some background research into that problem, looking at all the different aspects of that problem, as well as what's been done previously to help solve this problem. You then specify, from this background research and from the problem that you've identified, you then specify the requirements and the specific risks that could come out of your solution. You then go on to hopefully conceptualize what your solution looks like, make a decision on the best solution possible, prototype it, test it, and evaluate your results. Now, these last few steps are very much an iterative process in engineering. Once you've created a solution, how do you know that's the best, right? You then need to go back and decide, well, it met my requirements, but I'm not too sure whether or not my prototype is optimal. So then you could go test it with consumers, and if they have, if they report things that could be optimized, you then go back, fix the prototype, test again, and evaluate those results. If, when comparing your prototype to the original requirements and risks, you find that it doesn't actually meet those initial requirements, you can then go all the way back, revise your requirements if they need to be changed, or you can go back to change your initial conceptual idea. So this is kind of like the design process that me as a little baby engineer was brought up to, as my Bible to believe in, and I use throughout like my PhD to design things like spinal implants and surgical aids and things like that. But this can also be applied to creating digital interventions. I'm going to kind of put it in the context of digital interventions now. So I don't really think I need to tell researchers how to define a problem and how to research, But I can, I can tell you kind of where to go to get some ideas in the context of digital interventions. So specifically for defining the problem, the WHO, or the World Health Organization, has this document, which helps classify digital intervention services and applications. It gives a general overview of the different healthcare system challenges that are experienced. So if you find in this document something that might apply to your problem, you can go and have a look at this and then see what in the digital health interventions correlates to that, and also what services and applications might correlate to that problem that's been identified previously. So this is kind of like a really nice holistic overview of where to go to help firstly define your problem and then generally solve it. But when defining the problem, obviously you need to, I think the first point of call to be specific with defining your problem is going to the end users themselves, doing your consumer reference groups, qualitative research, looking at the qualitative research that's been done previously, etc. So make sure you do that. Background research. So obviously there's the obvious one of doing a literature review. For digital platforms, because it's such a large scape these days, and because things are chucked out willy-nilly, because things are just evolving all the time in the digital sphere, doing a market review can be really helpful to see what's already out there, what kind of visually you like and what visually you don't like, and then also to see what's been done in terms of the reviews. So what do other people around the world like or dislike? You can use star reviews or written reviews if you like to kind of evaluate the different options that are already out there. So for the literature review, that's obvious, don't need to go through that with you. So for the market review, you can go to places like app stores to have a look at what's already out there. Another tool that you can use is the University of Newcastle Library has this little databases section in their website, and you can use that to go to patent databases as well as standards databases. So patents are helpful to see what's been patented before, so what is already implemented in society, and how it's used. So that's all described in patents, and you can go to Australian Patents, which is a government website, or you can go to the World Patent Scope website to see what's done around the world and what's been registered. Another thing that you can do is look at international and national standards. It's very much a holy bible of engineering standards, and these kind of define testing methods, the types of kind of interventions that are optimal, and also it tells you the best way to manage your quality systems around those interventions, and also how to report them to things like the TGA and whatnot. So they can be really helpful when you're creating your methods and creating your interventions. And you can go to websites such as ISO, which is international, ASTM, which is America, BSOL, which is British, and then Standards Australia as well.
Can I ask questions as you go, or would you rather than...
Yeah, you can ask it.
You mentioned the TGA then. Would this sort of an app have to go through the TGA process?
Great question. So TGA has multiple different kind of steps that you can apply for, and it's a registration of your app and or device. You can register as a disqualified, I guess, intervention, which means that it's not a class 1, it's not defined as a class 1 device. A class 1 device is something that assists diagnosis.
So it comes under the heading of devices, apps in this case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you do, you can kind of go to the class or the device classifications that's within the TGA website, and then you can see whether or not your specific intervention meets any of those criteria to be a Class 1, Class 2A, Class 2B, Class 3, or biologic device.
So do you have to have clinical data to support the function or the applicability of the app before the TGA will allow you to use it in any sense?
Kind of. So in order to register it, you don't need to have that for specific classifications. So a class 1 device is helpful, but a class 1 device wouldn't necessarily need a phase 3 clinical trial to back it up necessarily, but these standards that are down the bottom here are referenced by the TGA, and so all you need to do is go to the TGA website, figure out what standards you need to follow and what regulations they want to see in terms of your quality management systems and etc., and then follow those standards in order to then apply for your TGA registration. So if you go to the TGA website, it'll reference what standards you need to follow. Cool. Any other questions?
The Australian patent and the WIPO scope, are they easy to search?
Yeah. It's literally just like a search bar, and then you can type in whatever keywords you're looking for. So digital asthma intervention, and then it'll come up with some patents that have that in the title. So next, specifying your requirements and the risks. So this is an area where you are trying to communicate or the initial part of communicating your intervention. So this is not done for specifically to, define the intervention. It's done to get everyone's thoughts on the same page, and to get everyone, all stakeholders, to input on what they want out of your intervention. So what engineers do is they create an engineering report that goes through the problem, the background research, and then the requirements and risks, and the kind of solutions that you come up with. And in that report, you usually have a requirements table. This goes through every single little specific requirement that you need to meet within your solution. So I've just put an example here. You usually have a reference, so it's easy to refer to your requirement. You give it a category, which helps kind of define the domain that your requirement's in, the name of it, and a description. This requirements table for our digital platforms was extremely long because we went into every single little detail that we possibly could think of with Asthma Australia and with HMRI researchers and stakeholders and things. So don't be afraid that it's extremely long, just know that you're just getting everything down onto paper so everyone's on the same page. For a risk assessment, you usually go through all the different risks that can happen. These can be user-related risks, so if someone uses it, are they at risk of something? It can also be project-related risks, so if you were to create a digital intervention, what could go wrong with the project, i.e. if it's too costly outside of your budget, your project could then fail, and therefore the whole thing could then fail. You can have administration risks, etc. But generally the process that you go through is similar, where you give it a reference so it's easy to refer to, you give it a category, so an overarching domain, whether that be the project risk or the user risk, etc. The name, the description, you give it a severity score out of 5, a likelihood score out of 5, and then a total risk rating out of 25. You list the mitigation method that you're coming up with to implement within your project, and then the revised risk rating to see how, therefore, the risk has been diminished compared to the early one. These numbers are kind of arbitrary, but it's to give you an idea of, and to get everyone on the same page of how you're going to diminish those risks within your project. Now let's get into digital health. And all the different kind of domains that come with digital health. So the next thing that we're going to do on our journey of the engineering process is conceptualization and decision, and I'm going to give you an overview of what's possible in digital health, essentially. So there are 5 different domains in digital health. When we think of digital health, we're probably thinking of the smartwatches, the apps, the things that you can, as a user or as someone who wants to know about their own health, use to get that data. So that comes under mHealth generally. mHealth is mobile health, so anything that's mobile that comes with you And it doesn't only encompass like wearables and things to track yourself, it also encompasses treatment options like TENS machines, CPAP machines, etc., which helps you with your health. Then there's telemedicine. Telemedicine encompasses video conferencing. That's probably the first thing that everyone thinks of when we think about telemedicine. But it also goes into telemonitoring, so remote monitoring devices, and the whole system behind sending that to a clinician. Telerehabilitation, so ways of delivering rehab to people through digital devices. Telesurgery, this is a fun one. Robotic surgery, anything in the surgical realm that requires digital devices and digital communication, so that a surgeon can be in a little box and then they just have their robot doing the surgery for them. It's super cool. Teledentistry, similar thing, but just for dentists, etc. So a very cool domain where people usually think of video conferencing first, but it encompasses a bunch of different really cool stuff. Integrated networks. So this is looking at overarching networks or connecting different aspects of healthcare that's outside of just the hospital or just the patient-doctor relationship. So that's e-prescribing, so connecting it with pharmacy, computerized physician order entry, so ordering things like pathology reports, etc., how we do that over digital health, and then referral networks as well. Then there's clinical information systems, so a holistic view of your patients would come under the electronic health records, having all the records for each patient, etc., etc. And then big data storage systems looks at storing like genomic data, analysing that genomic data. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is also a big one that's coming out in digital health at the moment. So those are the 5 different kind of domains of digital health that we have right now. So you have the idea of having a app, having an SMS messaging system, and also having a website. But you want a user to be able to connect between these 3 different things. So if they do something in the app, the SMS might be able to respond. Or you do something in the website and you want it to pop up in the app. How do you connect them? So this kind of diagram kind of displays like 3 different types of systems. However, the issue that we have is that each of these systems speak in a different language, specifically a different digital language. So it could be Java or whatever, but I've just put up, say one speaks in Swahili, one speaks in French, and one speaks in English. How the heck are they going to communicate with each other? So we do this in the digital sphere by integrating data, and you can do that by either having the device talking to a software. In order for that to happen, the software needs to understand what, say you're using Bluetooth to connect that data, needs to understand the specific Bluetooth language that that device is using. The issue is, if you were to integrate that Bluetooth language into your device, each different device has a different Bluetooth language that it uses. This issue is massive, and it's something that we've come up against in the digital team, where we want to connect Garmin, but also Apple Watches to our devices. However, both of those have different languages that they speak in. And so in order to integrate that with our app, we have to spend $20,000 in order to try and do that. It's per device, it's a lot. So it's a really, really difficult thing to do from a developer perspective. Therefore...
Just quickly then, obviously if you're speaking Swahili and what you say is translated to the French, you often hear the term something was lost in translation. Is there that possibility?
Absolutely. So that's where bugs and crashes and things like that happen, is because your software is trying to understand the language that's coming in and it doesn't understand it correctly. So therefore it could display data that is incorrect. It could just be like, error, I don't know what's happening. That's when you get an error pop up on your screen. It could just not recognize the device at all, etc. So that's where you start getting issues if they can't communicate effectively. Yeah. So to get around this specific issue, you then get that device to talk to its own software and then have that software talk to your software. So it sounds really complicated, but it makes it much simpler for you to then develop. And that's because software talking to software, you're able to configure that or do a translation method that is much, much easier than if you're trying to just drag data from a device that has very static software in it. And you can do that either through direct integration. So if there's a capability in one software to be able to translate to the other software speak and then pop it into that other software, you can do that. Or you can use this thing called an API integration, which is where you stick something in the middle, which takes that data, translates it, and then pops it out into that one. So there's two different kind of integration methods that you can use. So if you hear me talk about APIs and get really frustrated, it's because they can be very frustrating sometimes. There was a message in the chat about privacy issues with Bluetooth and things like that. Privacy is massive in digital healthcare. I didn't really want to go into it too much, but there are lots of different laws now that you need to abide by that cover things like Bluetooth data and general health data as well. As long as you are compliant to those and compliant to the standards that surround those and cover those, then you're A-okay to go. It's also where the TGA comes in to regulate that sort of a thing. Alrighty, so now we'll get on to prototyping, testing, and evaluating. So prototypes, what do they look like? At the very basic level for digital platforms, they look like wireframes, blueprints, and simulations. These can then be tested through consumers and end users and also stakeholders. So that's kind of a process that we've gone through in the digital team. We've created wireframes, blueprints, and simulations. I'll get into what they are in a second. But we've created that and we're going to take them to our consumer reference group very, very soon. What a I think I've put this in a later slide, but I'll just tell you guys here. Wireframes themselves are still images that depict what you want your specific screens to look like. So we call that the user interface, and it basically defines what the user interface looks like. Blueprints are still images of those wireframes, but they also contain data or information as to how to navigate through different screens. So it gives you the capacity to see how each screen kind of fits together and how each data is, how data from each screen is converted to the next screen, etc. So it's kind of like translating or correlating all the different screens that you've now made in your wireframes. I've actually gotten those two mixed up, but that's okay. Blueprints are the UI and wireframes are the connecting. Simulations are where you can, they're not static images, it's where you can physically go through the experience of your platform by clicking on it and kind of looking at it like you would a regular app, but it can't do everything that the regular app can do because obviously you haven't developed the back-end coding for it to create or take in data and use that data in specific ways. So you're going through, I guess, the user experience and the user interface in a very holistic overview way in simulations. When you take these to a developer, they will create an alpha prototype, which is then tested through computer cool simulations. They chuck it in and the computer does a whole lot of stuff to it and then tells you what all the issues are with it. It also goes through human alpha testers, which are usually the developers themselves and maybe some select people outside of that to see if they can find bugs, if they can find any issues in terms of the intended navigation. They usually go through these prototypes with the wireframes, blueprints, and simulations next to them to see if it is working as intended. Then you have a beta prototype, which is the improved alpha prototype, and it's more finessed, is higher fidelity, which means it's higher resolution, and it's getting to be what your final product is going to look like. That is tested through multiple different consumers and end users, developers, general public, dedicated testers that are all called beta testers. Usually people go and like it's a job to be a beta tester. They go and pay people to test their devices for them. Then you have the final release, which is constantly going through the general public, who come back with, I guess, what they would prefer and or any bugs that they find. And then you have the continual updating, which is what all your updates on iOS is, and etc. So that's the iterative process that you then go through. You test it, you go back, make it better, you test it again, go back, make it better, test it again. And this kind of continues to go on throughout its entire product life cycle. I put this in here to kind of give you some ideas on where to go if you did decide that you wanted to create a digital intervention. Where do you go to choose a developer once you have like your wireframes, etc.? So I started at a Google search to see who was nearby who developed things for specifically medical purposes. So I went to people's websites and I looked at what certifications they have. So those standards that I talked about earlier, you can have certifications per those standards. So it certifies that those people abide by the specific standards that they're certified for, which is a big old tick in my book because they are abiding by the engineering Bible. It's also important to see what healthcare projects they've done before and whether or not they comply with cybersecurity and data privacy standards. So going through their T's and C's and seeing what they do in terms of those sorts of things. Yeah, make contact, set up a meeting. I created a presentation to give them, to tell them the who, what, when, where, why, and how of our project, to set some expectations and to define exactly what I wanted from them, and to define to ask them exactly what they wanted from us in order to fulfill those roles. So I effectively asked them, if you go on to number 5, I asked them to provide or I provided them with a request for proposals document, which outlined all of the requirements, specified all that kind of stuff, had our blueprints in it, just chucked everything in there, and I'm just like, give us what you got. And then asked them to come back with a quote and a timeline as to how easy and cheap this will be. Very, very cheap, obviously. And then when we get those proposals back, compare the different options, do a reference check, shortlist, and decide which developer we want to then question further. That's the process that we went through. You don't have to, you can skip steps or whatever. Yeah. And the comment that was before, I can't see them.
So this is sounding expensive and scary. I guess my idea for an inhaler app to be used by nurses doing medications was a bit dreamy. Oh, don't give up.
So it's perfect that you bring that up. So that was the talking part of my talk. It's really good that you bring that up because I want to make it a little bit less scary in the second part of the talk, which we have about 20 minutes for. So what I want to do is go through with you how easy it is to actually create a prototype of an app. Yes, the expensive part can come if you are outsourcing everything in this process to someone else. But I hope now to give you the tools to initiate the process yourself, to make it a little bit less expensive for you. And you can do this in something as simple as PowerPoint. So everyone brought their computers. I hope that everyone has PowerPoint on their computers. Please go ahead and open up PowerPoint, a new slide. Yeah, this is just the definition of all the different types that you can have. And yeah, let's make an app. Should look something a little bit like this. What we're going to do is just get rid of these text boxes here. So I've also created a couple of steps for us to follow. so that you don't have to listen to my boring voice the entire time. Please. Alrighty, so the first thing that we want to do is go up to this design tab that's in PowerPoint. We then want to go customize, and we want to go slide size and go customize slide size. Okay, sorry. Design. This one?
It's a computer.
You want to go to this customize little box here on the right, and then you go to slide size, and then you go down to custom slide size. Now this is going to allow you to change how big your slide is. So what we want to do is make it into a phone size sort of a thing. So we go into width. You can get out a tape measure. That's what I did for my simulation in digital, is I just got out a tape measure and measured the size of my phone. But yeah, generally you'll have, not 66, 6 centimeters by 12. You want the slide size for up here to be custom, because you don't want a specific layout. And then I also put orientation as portrait. That's helpful if you want to print out eventually your slides and give it to someone. Then you just go okay. It'll ask you if you want to ensure fit or maximize your fit. You want to go ensure fit. And then it's going to look something like this. Is everyone up to this step? Sweet as. Alrighty, so now is the fun part, where we can go onto Google and we can start finding, let's say phone, image, border. Nope, not shopping.
Yes, shopping.
Thought you might say that, Clarky. There we go. And we've found a phone border. Just copy and paste that. And then you want to make it, you can crop it, make it the right size that you want.
It was already open. Oh, yeah.
Is someone talking?
They can't get the phone border.
Are you having trouble copying it into?
No, I just can't Google phone border. Right, maybe I'll put it together. Okay, and then what image do I pick? Anyone?
Yeah, any that you like. Yeah,
Okay.
and then it should come up in a little screen here. All you got to do is right click on that and just go copy image. Yeah.
Copy image.
Yep.
Got it.
And then you go into here, you right click and you can paste it as an image or anything. Just click one of these.
Awesome.
Yep.
And then just make it to size.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now you have your phone screen. We can now start making the home page of our app. So how do we do this? I start by making kind of like a background for the app, make it look kind of nice and fancy. So you can go to the insert button up here and you can go shapes. You can pop in
Not how phones are skinny. How do we paste it?
So yeah, to copy and paste, you can go Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste, or you can right click.
It goes straight away, doesn't it?
So
Didn't do that.
Your narrow can
It
control the kindergarten class.
So if I go Control-V, it comes out like that. If I double click, it'll take me to picture format. And then on the right here, under size, I can crop it.
That's what Liv just did.
Okay, so you're just dragging it.
Yeah, feet.
Oh, okay. Well, I did it.
Yep.
I thought there must have been a fancy way to make
Nah.
it so and distort it.
Nah, it's super simple. Just like what you think is probably what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah, I probably should have told people to bring mouses. They're mice. Anyway.
I think Kirsty makes all the
No, this is easy. Come on, guys. All right, so from here, you just start designing. So if you've done your background research, you might have an idea of what you like. You could also, if you wanted to right now, go and search like pretty app and petty. And then some ideas might come up for you to use. So yeah, and then you just start filling in your screen with kind of what you want. So I'm going to insert some shapes to give you like a welcome screen. So you can insert a line or whatever to section out your app.
Okay, why are you doing that? Mushrooms, yeah.
Going to insert some text.
Yeah, they're choosing a butterfly. Mine's giving me mushrooms.
All right, so I'm going to make my app to collect data on like vital signs. So let's go with heart rate and O2 sats. So I'm going to put in a little button for my heart rate. And then I'm going to put in another little button. Whoop. For my O2 sats. Alrighty. Actually, let's put it up there.
Aaron.
Alrighty. So I've now created my home screen. This is what I want it to look like. However, I want my, when I click on the heart rate button, I want it to take me to the heart rate page. So what I'm going to do is right click on the slide over here, and I'm going to go duplicate slide. Now that's going to create my second slide. So this is my home screen here, and then this is my second slide, which will be for heart rate. I'm going to then delete my O2 sats. I'm going to move this up here a little bit more. And I'm going to put in kind of like a graph that could represent the collection of data for your heart rate, say. So if I go to insert, if I go to chart here, I can then choose kind of like an Excel graph, a graph that I could then input into my app. So I'm just going to choose a basic line graph, go OK. It's going to think for a second. And this kind of pops up. So I can put in some representative data here. So I could put in today's date, which is the 30th of the 5th, 2024. Whoop, not 2020. Now I'm gonna say. Okay, so I've just kind of put in that date, and I want to register all the dates for the past 4 days. So I've just kind of like grabbed this down here, just like you would in Excel, and dragged it up. So now I have from the 27th to the 30th. And I'm going to put in some representative data. So let's say on this date I have a heart rate of 60, 70, 100, and then 80. So this is what that should look like now. I only want to show this here, so I've just kind of dragged the frames that the data is capturing just to that area. And once you've done that, it should have saved for you and you can just close. So now you have your graph that has your heart rate and everything. Now all you have to do is alter it to make it look pretty. So I don't need to have this heart rate here. You can delete that and just make it a bit smaller. And then you can also tell me if I'm going too fast or anything, please.
You're nailing it.
Okay, cool. You can also change what the font looks like, whether you want it smaller or larger, things like that. And then you have your heart rate thing. You can also delete that down the bottom because we don't need it. Okay, so I have my heart rate page now. Yeah.
Say you're not making a super complicated app, or you're doing something like this and knowing exactly what you want, planning it out, and then taking that to a developer, cut down on costs.
It
and
would.
time.
It could, absolutely, even if it is super simple. Because when you do go to a developer, there are several different kind of phases that you go through. The first one is the scoping phase, you could call it, or the design phase. And this phase is where you sit down with the developer and you go through kind of what you want in your intervention. The time that you spend doing that will decrease the more that you've done previously. So you will spend less on those sorts of meetings, getting together with them, if you've kind of set out exactly what you want in the first place. The other aspect to that is if it is a simple app, it should be pretty simple to do, hopefully. Cool. So how exactly am so I have my 2 pages here that I want. How exactly am I going to connect my first page to my second page is the next thing to do. So if I go back to this page, I want it so that when I press the presentation button, I can just click on the heart rate and it'll take me to the heart rate page. Now it's doing that at the moment because when you click on PowerPoint slides, it takes you just to the next one, right? However, if I wanted to go back to my home page from this page, I'm going to need to do something funky in order to do that, right? And to have it in a specific spot on the page as well. So what we do is we click on the button that we've created, heart rate, we right click and we go link. Now this page should come up. You want to go to place in document. So this is going to link your button to a specific place in the document, and you want to go slide 2. And then you go okay. So now, even outside of the presentation, if I hover over this, I could then click Control click and it'll take me to that page. Ooh. So you've now created your first button in your app simulation.
Can you create one a button that would appear on that slide too, that you can go back?
Exactly. So I'm going to insert an icon that's an arrow. Maybe it looks a bit like that. Make it a little bit smaller. So now I have my button down the bottom left. If I go right click and I go link, place in slide, place in this document, sorry, slide 1, go okay. Now I have a way of getting back to the initial page.
When you take what you might then finally develop at this point, and from your experience, you've gone to a developer and such, is there anything they would look at that cannot physically happen?
There's not a lot. that
So-
cannot physically happen. It's mostly when you start integrating other devices into this
So
device.
as far as building maybe what you then develop as your scene app, most of that is feasible.
Most of it is. Again, it'll come out in the scoping process as to whether or not it's not. So you'll have to, there's always workarounds. It's a big thing in engineering that you try and find the most efficient method, and if there is no efficient method, you go into the next most efficient. So there's always options to try and figure out.
Are we allowed to see your digital?
Yeah, so that was what I was about to go to. All right, so I have, you guys can continue creating your apps if you like, but this is the app that I've created for digital. I had an entry page just to see kind of like all the different, or list all the different things that are within the app. So we wanted a home page, asthma action plan in it, etc., etc. So if you just click on that, it'll take you to my app or phone screen. You click on the digital team app. So the first thing that pops up is our asthma check-in, which we hope people will do on a daily basis just to indicate what their symptoms are doing that day. So you can add in some comments if you want. So what symptoms specifically I'm having, what triggers I have, and PEF. So obviously I haven't put in to this simulation what happens when I click on these. It's just a representation. And then you can go back. Let's say I'm well controlled. This is my home screen. And then we have all the different pages in here. So you can go to your asthma goals, which you've created with your asthma educator. Go back home, look at my asthma. Maybe I want to take my ACQ. So it takes me to the ACQ. I cannot, in this simulation, actually press on any of these answers. So what I've done is I've just done like a ... This is kind of what we want it to do. The final page, and then like a ACQ score page. Take us back to the ACQ. Now that takes me to my progress page, etc., etc. So this app I've literally just created with the exact tools that PowerPoint has given me, and you can get as detailed into it as you like and have some cool things like things fading in if you use the animations part of PowerPoint, etc. So super simple. Does everyone feel like that they can make an app simulation?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah? Hell yeah. All right.
I have a question about ACQ.
Yeah.
Is that going to take you to like, or is it the system that they support? Because I thought with the ACQ you had to use their specific technology person, platform, or whatever.
So you
to
can
do it digitally.
It depends on the license that you have. So what you can do is get a license to use the ACQ, and then if you say wanted to put it into an app, you draw up your wireframes or simulation, then you provide it back to MAPI or the people who own the license, and you say, hey, this is what we want. Can you tell us exactly what you want it to look like within the app? And then you can get it validated or approved for that use. So that's exactly what Asthma Australia are going through right now, is getting it approved for an app.
Thank you, Kirsty.
That's okay, you're welcome.